Well, Adam, another exciting week around here for the Buffaloes. Coming off of another disappointing loss, but Carl Drill made some changes. I mean, we've heard about the subtle changes this week. Was a big change. The Buffs fire offensive line coach Mitch Rodrigue, and from everything we're hearing, I mean, guys are kind of energized by it. That's what Darrell kind of wanted to do, is send some more energy into this team, and it seems like they are re-energized.
Yeah, and I know that Pat Rooney at the press conference kind of questioned, like, why didn't you do this during the bye week? I think it's tough to do that, flat out fire a coach mid-season, and you wanted to give him every opportunity, but obviously Cal with 6 sacks, it was pretty evident at that point. I mean, you've given up 22 sacks, and that's not the only problem on this football team. We know that, but you needed to do something, and so we'll see how that transpires and if that does energize that group. And William Vallejos, I mean, here you are, you get promoted to be this team's offensive line coach the rest of the way, and then you've got Kayvon Thibodeau, who's projected to be the #1 draft pick next year in the NFL, going up against him. And he was banged up earlier this year, but he came back, looked really healthy against UCLA. Had 4.5 tackles for loss in that game, and he knocked Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of that game late. So, this is going to be a big challenge for them. I remember in the preseason, I had a lot of offensive linemen talk about how tight that group was, and a lot of times it wasn't even really prodding for that type of response. It was guys going out of their way talking about how close they are. I heard some friction between that group and their position coach, and now that's not an excuse. This is a group that returned 4 starters, and Frank Phillip had the injury, and Casey Roddick was held out this offseason. But at this point, it's time to put that all together and maybe not be one of the best offensive line units in the Pac-12, but be a little bit closer to what our expectations were for that group coming into this season.
Yeah, you got to be better. Got to give Brendan Lewis some time. Got to open some holes for the running backs. And I talked to none of the offensive linemen were available this week, but I talked to Brady Russell, and I kind of joked with him. So I know you're not an offensive lineman. He goes, well, I kind of am by extension. He goes, I'll own that. So he was able to speak a little bit about it, and he thought the guys were re-energized by it. That it was kind of a refreshing change, and he did say not that we wanted to see Coach Rod get fired, and he did say, I like Coach Rod, he's a good man and all that, but it sounds like from talking to Brady, talking to other people, it's just a change of message has been really important. And I thought it was interesting, we talked to Darian Hagan, and he said they've really gone back to some terminology that they used with previous offensive line coaches. So, it sounds like they're changing things fairly drastically up front to where, and Coach Carl Darrell mentioned that, doing some things now that maybe are more in line with my philosophy. So it sounds like he didn't mesh real well with Mitch. So just overall, it sounds like maybe there's just changing a lot of different things. So we'll see what happens when you change so much in 1 week.
Yeah, it's a good job interview for Donovan Williams and that graduate assistant role, and William Vallejos as well. If they do go outside to hire after this season, and that, as Darrell said, that's a ways off. He didn't really like me asking about that, which I totally get at this point. I'd love to see them get an offensive line coach with Midwest ties. I feel like that's an area that you can recruit to Boulder, and there's not a big culture shock with those guys coming out here. I don't know. That's just one area. But, we'll see what William Vallejos does. This is certainly a great opportunity for him. If that's a group that improves a lot, it's good. It would be hard not to keep him in that role.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. In talking to Hagan, the running backs are a group that obviously, by extension of the line, they have not had the season that we, thought they might have. We talked earlier this year before the season started. This could be one of the best running back groups we've seen in a long time around here. Well, they're not putting up the stats at all. Jarek Broussard, Offensive Player of the Year last year, not doing a whole lot, and it's not all his fault. I get it, but that group hasn't produced a whole lot. What are your thoughts on what this change could do for that group?
Well, I don't think many people out there are blaming Jarek Broussard and Alex Fontenot for their lack of success in the ground game, right? If you're placing blame in terms of why they haven't been running the ball, I think they're low on that list just because there's a thing they invented called the forward pass. If you're not consistent with that, other teams are just going to load the box, and that's been more of the issue. And I think Jarek Broussard at times has looked a little banged up. I don't think we've ever really heard that he's got an official injury, but it doesn't look like he's been 100% either, which I'm sure hasn't really helped that situation.
And what running back is by the end of October, right? But we did, he is practicing and everything, so he's fine. It's just they all have the bumps and bruises, right? So, you expect that. But I thought Hagan was interesting because he mentioned, you asked the question, what's the difference between this year and what happened last year with the running backs? And he said, hey, Sam Neuer could throw the ball, and opponents knew that. And right now they don't think that with Brendan Lewis. With the exception of one game against Arizona, he has not really done that. That's got to show up at some point soon for these running backs to be able to run.
Yeah, and I don't know if this will be the week, but you had to do something there, and they're trying it out.
Yeah. Well, this is a tough week for that to happen. So let's talk about this one because you're reeling at this point as a program, and now you get to go to number 7 Oregon, which is coming off of a big win against UCLA. And Kayvon Thibodeau, as you mentioned, coming off of a huge game. He looks healthy now. He's got to be licking his chops, and a lot of those guys on defense have got to be licking their chops watching this team, right?
Yeah, I will say, if you're looking for a glimmer of hope here, and it's tough, especially Nate Landman's probably not going to play. I mean, and I expect them to be better defensively than what we saw in the second half against Utah and in the Alamo Bowl. Mm-hmm. But it's still a huge hit, obviously, to this team. The one thing I will say is Oregon has had a tendency this year to play to their opponent. And we're going to get into predictions later. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking Colorado to go out there and pull off the upset. But this is an Oregon team that, with Anthony Brown being inconsistent at quarterback, it's not a juggernaut.
Yeah.
This isn't, they could be in the conversation potentially to work their way back into the playoff discussion. But, they're 0-4 as favorites this year. The games, they've been underdogs twice and have done
0-4 against the spread.
Against the spread, as underdogs. So, that's one thing. But one thing with Oregon is they've been really opportunistic. They lead the Pac-12 in turnover margin by a wide margin. So, if you have any chance at CU, you got to flip that completely, obviously, in this game, get out to a hot start. Everything's got to go. It's got to be a perfect storm for Colorado to compete in this game.
I feel like they've almost got to come out with something shocking on offense. Like they've completely changed everything on offense, and all of a sudden they're running a wishbone or something like that to throw everybody off.
No, we are. Monica already asked about.
I know. About that. That's kind of why I mentioned it, because it's been asked. But but that's what I mean, though. In a game like this, it feels like there's got to be some drastic changes offensively to what they're doing in order to throw Oregon off, to really have a shot.
Yeah. Well, I was asked by our Oregon writer, when is Brendan Lewis at his best? And it's been as a runner. And I get some of the zone read stuff you're going to kind of do based on what the defense is doing there. But in Brendan Lewis, like you said, guys aren't 100% at this point of the season, but that's their best chance, is to really utilize him as a runner in this football game. Easier said than done in terms of you're going to have to expose him if you do that. And other teams, might adjust and prepare for that. But that is when he's been at his best this year.
And it should be noted, he's not at 100% either. I mean, we saw him get banged up a little bit at the end of the Cal game. Coach Terrell said that he practiced today, but it sounds like he's trying to nurse some things as well, like a lot of guys are. So, but let's get into prediction time here. I've tried to be optimistic, but it's really hard to be optimistic this week. Who goes first here?
Go ahead.
I just can't see the Buffs really competing in this one. It's hard for me to see that. I know I picked them to win at Cal. Cal was sort of a struggling team. Oregon, like you said, they play down to their opponent, but I just think they're so much better than Colorado right now. I think Oregon runs away with this thing and wins 45-10.
That's actually the exact score prediction that I was going to go with. Well, we're not expecting to see Nate Landman in this game, so I'll probably give Oregon another touchdown in there. I'll go 52-10.
Okay, that's ugly. Either way, if we're right, that's ugly. And I will give the offense. I'm giving the offense a touchdown there. I think they get in the end zone at some point, but I just don't see things changing dramatically this week. Hey, maybe the next 4 weeks some things, but not against number 7 Oregon on the road. So we'll see what happens. But you and I are both going to be out there. You looking forward to it?
Yeah, I've got family out there, so there's so much negativity around us covering this football team right now. So any opportunity, it's a beautiful day in Boulder. You look through for those opportunities to find joy throughout this season. So I'll get to spend some time with family, and they have the famous O cookies there in the press box.
That's right.
So we'll find the positives even if it's turns out like we're predicting.
Well, we were both there in 2016 as well when there was an upset. So we'll see what happens. But Adam and I will be back after the game to talk about it.